Something strange has been happening, and a lot of us are feeling it, even though we're not saying it out loud. Things that used to matter just don't land the same way anymore. Maybe things like family gatherings that feel forced, or chasing goals that used to excite you, meaningless conversations that don't go anywhere anymore. And you can still show up and do all of those things. But it feels like as if something in you has been numbed out. It's taking so much time, energy, and effort to do all of those things. And maybe the first reaction is to think like there is something wrong, like you've lost your passion, your drive, your edge. But what if you're not losing something? What if you're actually waking up to something, even if it doesn't feel like it at all? There is a real shift happening right now, and you can probably feel it in how loud everything has become. This constant input, the speed, the next big thing you're supposed to be chasing, the pressure to stay engaged, informed, and relevant. And at the same time, there is this opposite movement inside you, which feels like almost as if you're pulling back your own energy, like something in you just stopped cooperating. Like you can no longer keep pretending that things matter the same way they used to. And you're not the only one, because a lot of people are arriving in the same point right now, where everything that used to feel normal just no longer feels true. And maybe the strangest part is just watching everything grow more chaotic and recognizing that that part of you that used to react to it is just no longer running the same way anymore. It feels like that part of you is just starting to fade. That version that was built to function in something that was so misaligned. The version of you that knew how to chase, perform, how to stay busy in order not to ask questions. The one that kept pushing and going, even if something in you felt so off. And you were rewarded for being that version because it worked. It got you somewhere in your career, in your relationships, in that life that you built for yourself, your sense of who you were expected to be. That's why losing it feels like losing yourself, because for a long time, that's how you knew yourself, but it's not you anymore. You're losing tolerance to things that never fully felt true, even if it once made sense. And it's not like you're becoming empty, even though it might feel like it. It's just you're no longer available for what doesn't feel real anymore. Most people do not stop long enough to actually notice this. That what we call normal life is built in a way that keeps you outward, not inward. To stay focused, engaged, always occupied with something, distracted, always on to the next thing before you've had a chance to sit with the last one. Not long enough to see what is actually underneath this constant upward and onward mentality. Because if you actually slow down, not for the weekend, but for real, you would start seeing things that you've been moving past. You would start asking questions that don't really have convenient answers, the questions that you've been avoiding. And once you start asking those, you are no longer as easy to steer and guide, because a person who can truly sit with themselves and actually listen doesn't actually need nearly as much from the outside to know what truly matters. So what you're feeling, this quiet disinterest, this flatness, is not that you've lost yourself. It's just the absence of stimulation that used to override your own signal. And at first it may feel like something is wrong and something is missing. But what is actually happening is that you stop overriding what you truly feel, because you're no longer constantly pulled outward in the same way. And without that pull, there is this new space in you, and most people are not used to having that space, because that's where you can actually hear yourself. And that might not be a very comfortable or comforting thing to hear, because it can be very confronting, especially if you're not used to being that honest with yourself. And what you start seeing is that most people are not lost. It's just that they are being loyal to the version of themselves that no longer exists. So you might not be actually confused. You may start disagreeing with your own life. We've been taught that the mind is the guidance system, that if you think clearly enough, if you plan enough, then you will find the right path. But the mind was never meant to lead. It was designed to execute. The heart is the one that knows where to go. That's your compass, your GPS. You've probably felt that before when something made perfect sense on paper, but just didn't feel right. But somewhere along the way, things got reversed, and we started trusting only the part of us that thinks it knows what's best. The part that wants control, certainty, outcomes, the part that strategizes everything, even though it sees a very small part of the picture, because it's a very limited lens. And even if it feels certain, it only sees a small fraction of what is actually possible. And yet we've been letting it decide because everything around us is built in a way that keeps this part in charge. We've learned to distrust what we feel and over-rely on what we can justify and strategize. And for many people, it is starting to correct itself. In these subtle moments when something looks right but feels so wrong and dead inside. This feeling of, this isn't it. It is not confusion. It is direction trying to get through. And for some of you, it's not just that things don't feel right anymore. It's that the things that used to revolve around you don't hold the same weight. What you want, what feels comfortable, what used to bring you distraction or pleasure, it starts to feel thin. Not because these things changed, but because you did. And it can feel like grief and loss. It's like losing interest in everything that you used to rely on to feel like yourself. And it is scary. But if you look a little bit closer, you may see that it's not that something is breaking down in you, but it's that your energy is no longer fully available to only living for yourself. And your heart might start reaching for something deeper, something that not only feels good, but also feels meaningful. Not only what you're here to get, but also what you're here to give. Because the life that was built around comfort, achievement, validation, even security, starts to feel empty. And the first instinct is fear, trying to go back, to make yourself want those things again. But you cannot force yourself into a life that your heart has already stepped out of. And for many people, that's the different kind of path. The one that is less about accumulation and consumption and more about contribution and service. And it rarely starts with clarity. Usually it starts with disillusionment, because once you start moving in that direction, you cannot actually do it from a version of yourself that isn't real anymore. These parts do not come with you. That is why anything that isn't real, that is not aligned, starts to fall apart. And sometimes that shift doesn't just change what you want, but it also changes who and what you're willing to keep in your life. There is a lot of performative language right now around love. I mean, real love in a spiritual sense, not human conditional love. People know how to say the right thing. They're trying to act loving without being honest, sometimes even with yourself. And that is exactly why this disconnect is happening, because love is not something that you perform. It is what is left when you stop distorting yourself. In a deeper sense, authenticity is a higher frequency, because when you're being real, love is not something that you find or create. It is something that you recognize. It is what is left when everything falls away. And it is what you are underneath all of it and what you have always been. Love is our true nature. When we stop splitting ourselves and adjusting our truth to stay accepted. When we stop overriding what we truly feel to maintain something. And that is exactly when something starts to realign. So the real work is not about becoming more loving. It's about becoming more honest, even if the honesty costs you something, because it will. Even the discomfort you're feeling has a function. It is not random, and it's not there just to endure. It is showing you where you're out of alignment in your life and what is no longer true for you. And many people try to get rid of that discomfort as quickly as possible instead of seeing what it is actually pointing to and what it's trying to show them. They're trying to go back to normal right away. And because of that, they go back to the same things that created that discomfort. And then they keep wondering, why does it keep coming back? But it will keep repeating until you do. So the real question is what it is that you are committed to. Paying attention and learning, or repeating the same thing again and again. We're moving into a time where everything can be convincingly replicated. Voices, ideas, identities, narratives, even entire realities. And in a world like that, thinking alone isn't enough anymore. Your logic alone will not protect you because you can be logically convinced in something that is not actually true. So the real skill right now isn't intelligence, it is discernment. It is not analyzing more, but it is actually sensing what is real and what is not. Being able to feel when something is off, even when everything about it looks right. And that is only possible when you're connected to yourself enough not to override that signal when something looks convincing or makes sense. Because not everything that looks convincing is actually true. So if you feel like you're losing interest in everything, pause before you try to fix it. Because you might not be losing your drive. You might just be losing your willingness to keep participating in something that is no longer aligned. And that space that you're in right now, where things feel flat, uncertain, not identified, that might not actually be a dead end. That's what it feels like when all distractions stop working and something real finally has a chance to come through. And when you feel it, even briefly, and even if you try to ignore it, you don't go back, not the same way, because going back starts to feel like a lie.